What happens when love becomes routine, and routine becomes distance? Claire sat inside her car, parked outside Ethan's office, staring at her reflection in the rearview mirror. The woman she saw didn't look like the person she remembered. The one who used to laugh easily, who believed marriage meant forever. Her eyes looked tired now, almost unsure of what forever even meant. She sighed, brushing her hair back, then looked at the small paper bag beside her, lunch from his favorite cafe. The same place where, years ago, they used to sit for hours dreaming about the future. She had no special reason to visit. Maybe she just wanted to remind him, and herself, that they were still them. The same couple that once couldn't stop talking. But lately, silence filled their home like a fog that refused to lift. Inside the building, the air smelled of coffee and paper. She smiled at the receptionist, walked down the familiar hallway, and paused when she heard laughter. Ethan's voice. For a moment, her heart lifted, until she saw what he was laughing at. A young woman, sitting across from him, smiling, leaning just a little too close. They were sharing something she didn't know anymore. Comfort, ease, attention. It wasn't a scandal, not even wrong, but it stung. That warm, familiar sound, his laugh, belonged to someone else in that moment. Claire froze, gripping the lunch bag tighter. Her breath caught in her chest, but she forced herself to smile as she stepped in. "Hey," she said softly. Ethan turned, surprise flashing in his eyes. "Claire, what are you doing here?" She tried to sound casual. "You forgot lunch. Thought I'd bring it over." He looked at her, a bit confused, then smiled. A quick, polite smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "That's really sweet. Thank you." The woman beside him stood up, smiled politely, and walked out. Ethan turned back to his desk, unpacking the food. "You didn't have to drive all the way here." Claire shrugged. "I wanted to." He nodded, distracted by his ringing phone. Within seconds, his attention was gone again. Back to work, back to screens, back to everything but her. Claire stood there, invisible in the room that used to feel like part of her life. She didn't know why she stayed for another minute, maybe hoping he'd notice her silence. But he didn't. So she left quietly, the sound of laughter from another office chasing her down the hall. Outside, the city buzzed with noise, but inside her, everything was quiet, the kind of quiet that hurts. She sat in her car again, staring through the windshield, her thoughts running wild. Was she overthinking? Or had they really drifted that far? When they first got married, Ethan used to text her just to say he missed her smile. Now, weeks passed between genuine words. Everything had turned into reminders. Pay the bills, pick up groceries, don't forget your meeting. It wasn't a fight. It wasn't hate. Just distance, so slow and subtle that neither of them noticed it taking over. That night, when Ethan got home, she was in the kitchen, pretending to scroll through her phone. He looked tired, loosened his tie, and dropped onto the couch. "Long day," he muttered. She forced a smile. "I stopped by your office." He looked up. "You did?" "Yeah. You were busy." He frowned slightly, as if trying to remember what she was talking about, then said, "Oh, right, yeah. Sorry about that. It's been crazy at work lately." She nodded. "I know." For a moment, there was silence. Then Ethan reached into his bag and pulled out something unexpected. A small bouquet of flowers. "These are for you," he said, smiling gently. "I saw them on my way home. Thought you'd like them." Claire blinked, surprised. It was the first spontaneous thing he'd done in months. She took the flowers, her heart softening for a second. "They're beautiful," she whispered. But that warmth didn't last. Because while they ate dinner in front of the TV, Ethan's phone kept buzzing. "Work messages," he said. And maybe it was true. But something about the way he turned the screen away each time made her chest tighten again. Later that night, she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling while Ethan slept beside her. The quiet hum of the city filled the room. She turned slightly, watching his face in the dark. She wanted to reach out, to touch his hand, to ask, "Do you still see me the same way?" But the words stayed locked inside her. Instead, she closed her eyes, trying to hold on to old memories. Their first road trip, the way he used to sing terribly in the car, the way he'd kiss her forehead before falling asleep. But all of that felt like another lifetime. Suddenly, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She frowned, reaching for it carefully so she wouldn't wake Ethan. The screen glowed softly. An unknown number. Her heart skipped. The message read, "You still think of me sometimes, don't you?" For a second, she thought it was a mistake. Then she saw the name. Daniel. Her breath caught. Daniel, her best friend from college. Her first almost love before Ethan. She hadn't heard from him in years. Not once after she got married. Not until now. She stared at the message, her hands trembling. Why now? Why tonight of all nights? The room felt colder. Ethan shifted beside her, still asleep, unaware. Claire locked her phone, turned it face down and lay there, eyes wide open, heart racing. Because somewhere deep down, she knew this message wasn't just random. It was a door, one she thought she'd closed forever. And she didn't know whether she had the strength to leave it shut this time. Claire lay awake, staring at the phone glowing faintly beside her pillow, the same thought looping in her mind. What if that message wasn't just from the past, but a test for the future? What if the person you once loved appears just when your heart starts to fall apart? Claire stared at the message glowing on her phone. "You still think of me sometimes, don't you?" The words felt too familiar, too dangerous. Her heart pounded as she reread it, wondering if she should reply. Daniel. It had been more than 10 years since they'd spoken. Back then, they were inseparable, best friends who almost became something more. But before that something could happen, Ethan came into her life, and Daniel quietly disappeared. She told herself to delete the message, pretend it never came, but loneliness has its own logic. It makes even silence feel heavy. And so, with trembling fingers, she typed back, "Daniel, it's been years. How are you?" The reply came almost instantly. "I'm good. I saw your paintings online. You still paint sunsets like they mean something." She smiled. A small, guilty smile. Ethan never noticed her art anymore. He used to hang her paintings around the house, proud of her talent. Now they sat stacked in the basement, forgotten. The next evening, Ethan called to say he'd be working late. Claire cooked dinner for one, but she barely touched it. Her phone buzzed again. Daniel was nearby for a business trip. "Would you like to catch up?" "Just coffee. Nothing more," she hesitated. She knew it wasn't a good idea. But the thought of being seen, of being heard, felt impossible to resist. So she agreed. The cafe was quiet, filled with the smell of roasted coffee beans and rain outside. Daniel looked almost the same, a little older, but still with that calm smile that once made her feel safe. "You haven't changed much," he said, studying her face. "Still thoughtful. Still carrying everyone's feelings before your own." Claire laughed softly. "I guess some habits never go away." They talked for hours. About old dreams, art, books, even the silly things they did in college. She didn't notice the time until her phone buzzed. Ethan's name flashing on the screen. Missed call. Her smile faded. "I should go," she said quickly, grabbing her purse. Daniel nodded, his expression soft. "It was really nice seeing you again, Claire." When she got home, the house was dark. Ethan was asleep on the couch, the TV still playing quietly. She stood there, watching him, feeling a strange mix of guilt and sadness. She hadn't done anything wrong, but something inside her knew she was walking a thin line. The next few days passed in a blur. She told herself that meeting Daniel was harmless, but she couldn't stop thinking about it. About how easy it felt to talk to him, how he actually listened. He asked about her art, her dreams, her feelings. Ethan hadn't asked those questions in years. Their messages continued, small at first, then longer. They talked about life, choices, and what might have been if timing had been different. Claire didn't tell Ethan. It wasn't an affair, she told herself. It was friendship. But deep down, she knew she was hiding something. One evening, she was cooking dinner when Ethan came home earlier than usual. She was smiling at her phone, reading a message from Daniel. Ethan's voice startled her. "Who's that?" She froze. "Oh, just a friend from college." Ethan nodded slowly, pretending not to care. But something shifted in his eyes. He looked at her longer than usual, his jaw tightening slightly. "You don't usually smile at your phone like that," he said lightly. Claire forced a laugh. You're imagining things. But the tension in the air said otherwise. That night, Claire couldn't sleep. She lay awake, replaying the moment over and over. She wasn't doing anything wrong, yet it didn't feel right either. Ethan had grown distant, but now she realized she was doing the same. The next morning, Ethan left early, saying he had a meeting across town. Claire noticed something strange. He didn't kiss her goodbye. Not even a distracted wave, just a cold, quiet exit. Meanwhile, Daniel texted again. "I'm still in town. Would you want to grab lunch before I fly back?" She hesitated but said yes. Maybe she just wanted closure. Or maybe she didn't want to admit that a small part of her was drawn to him again. They met at a small restaurant near the old art studio where she used to paint. The familiarity of it all tugged at her heart. "You remember this place?" he asked. "Of course," she said. "We used to come here every Friday after class." He smiled softly. "You were always happiest when you had paint on your hands and coffee in your cup." Claire laughed quietly. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen, not as a wife or a woman trying to keep everything together, but as herself. After lunch, they walked outside. The sky was gray, a light drizzle falling. He offered his umbrella, and they stood close, talking, laughing. When they said goodbye, Daniel didn't touch her, didn't say anything inappropriate, but the look in his eyes said more than words could. When Claire returned home, Ethan was there, sitting on the couch, his laptop open but untouched. "You were out?" he asked. "Yes, I met a friend." He nodded again. "Daniel?" The sound of that name coming from his mouth made her heart stop. "Ethan!" He raised a hand gently. "It's okay. You don't have to explain. I saw you." Her breath caught. "You followed me?" "I didn't plan to," he said quietly. "I just needed to see what I already felt." Claire's throat tightened. "It's not what you think. I just needed someone to talk to." Ethan's voice was calm, almost too calm. "And you couldn't talk to me?" She didn't answer, because the truth was painful. She had tried, for years. But somewhere along the way, they stopped listening to each other. Ethan looked down, his voice breaking slightly. "I never thought I'd be the husband who lost his wife without even realizing it." Tears filled her eyes. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "I know," he whispered. "But you did." The silence that followed felt endless. Claire wanted to explain, to make him understand that she wasn't trying to replace him. She was just trying to feel alive again. But no words came. Only guilt. That night they barely spoke. Ethan worked late in his study while Claire sat in bed, staring at her phone again. Daniel had texted, "Are you okay?" She didn't reply. For the first time, she didn't know what she wanted anymore. The next morning, when she went to the kitchen, Ethan was gone. His keys were missing, his coffee cup still on the counter. But something else caught her eye. A note on the fridge. Just 4 words, written in his familiar handwriting. "I need some space." Her stomach dropped. She read the note again and again, her heart pounding in her chest. And then her phone buzzed. Another message from Daniel. "I heard what happened. Can we talk?" Claire's hands shook as she read it. Because this time, she didn't know if saying yes would fix her heart. Or break it completely. She stood in the kitchen, torn between 2 names lighting up her life in completely different ways. One from her past, one from her present, and for the first time, she realized she could lose them both. What if the moment you look for answers, you find heartbreak staring back instead? Ethan sat in his car across the street from the cafe, the rain streaking down his windshield like tiny cracks spreading through glass. He hadn't meant to follow Claire, but something inside him, that quiet voice of suspicion he tried to ignore, wouldn't let him rest. He told himself he just wanted to know, just wanted to understand what was really happening. When he saw her through the window, his chest tightened. She was sitting across from Daniel, laughing softly. It wasn't just the laughter, it was her eyes. That look of warmth, of attention, the same one she used to give him. Ethan gripped the steering wheel, his heart pounding. It didn't look wrong, yet it didn't look innocent either. He watched as Daniel leaned closer, saying something that made her smile in a way Ethan hadn't seen in years. It hurt, not like anger, but like grief. Because right there, he realized he hadn't just lost her attention. He'd lost her heart without even noticing when. That evening, when Claire came home, she was still humming the tune from the cafe, unaware that Ethan had seen everything. Dinner was quiet, the kind of silence that carries 1,000 unspoken things. After a while, Ethan set down his fork and said softly, "Who is he, Claire?" Her hand froze. The words hit her like a gust of cold wind. "Ethan, it's not what you think." He looked at her, calm but with eyes full of questions. "Then tell me what I should think." She tried to steady her voice. "He's just an old friend. We ran into each other by chance." "An old friend you're having coffee with during work hours?" His tone was gentle, but it carried hurt. "Claire, I saw you." Her breath caught. "You followed me?" He nodded. "I didn't plan to. I just needed to know what's been going on between us. I see you slipping away, and I don't know how to stop it." Tears stung her eyes. "Ethan, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. She hesitated, the truth trembling on her lips. "I just needed someone to listen. Someone who remembered who I was before life got so heavy." Ethan leaned back, his face pale but controlled. "And that someone wasn't me anymore." Claire's voice broke. "You stopped noticing, Ethan. You stopped asking if I was okay. You stopped seeing me." He looked at her, pain flickering across his face. "Maybe I stopped because I thought we were fine. I didn't realize you were drifting until you were already gone." They sat there in silence, not out of anger, but exhaustion. The kind of quiet that comes when love has been stretched too thin. Finally, Claire whispered, "I didn't cheat on you." Ethan nodded slowly. "Not with your body, but maybe with your heart." The words hung between them, raw and honest. Claire looked away, blinking back tears. She wanted to fight back, to tell him he was wrong. But she couldn't. Because deep down, she knew he was right. She stood from the table, unable to breathe. Walking to the hallway mirror, she caught her reflection again, and it scared her. She looked like someone she didn't recognize anymore. Someone torn between guilt and emptiness. Behind her, Ethan whispered, "Do you still love me, Claire?" She turned, her eyes shining with tears. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I want to, but I don't even know who we are anymore." Ethan's shoulders sank. He didn't argue, didn't shout. He just nodded, defeated. Then maybe we both forgot how to love each other somewhere along the way. That night, the house felt colder than ever. Claire sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the suitcase lying half open beside her. She wasn't leaving, not yet. She just needed space. A night away. Maybe at her sister's. A night to think. She packed a few things quietly, glancing toward the door, but when she opened it, Ethan was standing there, holding something in his hand. It was a photograph. An old one. The two of them, soaked in rain, laughing in front of their first apartment. Claire gasped softly. She hadn't seen that picture in years. Ethan's voice was calm but heavy. "This was us, remember? We didn't have much, but we had each other." She looked at the photo, tears blurring her vision. "We were happy," she whispered. He nodded. "We still could be." For a brief second she saw it, a glimpse of what they once were. Two people who had built a life on love, not routine. But reality came crashing back as quickly as hope had risen. Claire took the photo gently, running her fingers over the faded image. "I don't know how to get back there," she said softly. "We've both changed." "Then maybe," Ethan said, his voice trembling, "we find out if what's left is still enough." The words broke her completely. She wanted to say yes, to promise she'd try. But the guilt inside her, the memory of Daniel's kind smile, the way she'd felt alive again, made her feel undeserving. She stepped back slightly. "I need time," Ethan nodded, his eyes filled with sadness. "I'll wait, please don't shut me out completely." Claire turned away, wiping her tears. She placed the old photo on the nightstand, beside her phone. The same phone that moments later buzzed softly. She looked down. A message, from Daniel. "I know things are hard. If you need someone to talk to, I'm here." Her throat tightened. She looked at Ethan, standing quietly in the doorway, unaware of the message that just arrived. For a moment, her heart pulled in two directions. One toward the man who once made her feel safe, and the other toward the man who made her feel seen. She placed her phone face down, unable to decide. The rain outside grew heavier, echoing against the window like the sound of everything falling apart. She whispered into the silence, "How did we end up here?" Ethan didn't answer. He just looked at her one last time before walking down the hall, his footsteps fading into another room. Claire sat alone, the house filled with the sound of rain and regret, and as she glanced at the photo, their younger selves smiling under the storm, she realized something painful. Sometimes love doesn't end in anger or betrayal. Sometimes it ends in quiet moments, when two people stop recognizing the way they used to look at each other. Claire stared at the message still glowing faintly on her phone, Daniel's words tempting her heart. Outside, the thunder rolled softly, and in that moment, she knew her next choice would decide whether she would save her marriage or lose it forever. What if forgiveness isn't about forgetting, but finally understanding each other again? The morning light slipped through the curtains, touching the edge of the photo on Claire's nightstand. She blinked awake, the quiet of the house pressing against her chest. Ethan hadn't come to bed. His side of the mattress was cold, untouched. The silence between them had become its own language, painful, heavy, almost familiar. She walked into the living room and found him there, sitting on the couch, holding that same old photo of them laughing in the rain. His expression was calm but tired, like a man who'd spent the whole night trying to remember how something so beautiful had gone wrong. He looked up slowly. "This was us," he said softly. "Before life got so busy, before we forgot how to talk." Claire's throat tightened. "I miss that version of us," she whispered. Ethan nodded, his voice breaking a little. "So do I." For a long time, neither spoke. The air was thick with words that didn't know how to form sentences. Then Ethan finally asked, "Do you still love me, Claire?" She hesitated. Her heart wanted to say yes, but her voice wouldn't follow. "I want to," she said quietly, "but I don't know how to anymore." He looked at her, eyes full of something between pain and hope. "Then maybe," he said, "we start by trying." It wasn't a promise. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something, a beginning, however fragile. Days passed slowly after that. Claire and Ethan spoke in small steps, about simple things at first, groceries, errands, little jokes they used to share. It felt awkward but also real, like learning to walk again after forgetting how. One evening, Ethan surprised her with dinner, her favorite pasta from the place they used to visit before they got married. He lit 2 candles on the table. "No reason," he said with a shy smile. "Just, I missed this." Claire looked at him, her heart softening. "You're trying," she said quietly. He nodded. "So are you," and she was. She'd stopped replying to Daniel's messages. Not because she hated him, but because she realized he belonged to a part of her past that she couldn't keep living in. She needed to face her present, even if it hurt. But one evening, as she sat alone painting by the window, her phone buzzed again. It was Daniel. "Leaving for Europe tomorrow. Just wanted to say goodbye properly." She stared at the message for a long time. It wasn't wrong to say goodbye, but something told her even a goodbye could open old wounds. She hesitated, then finally replied, "Take care, Daniel. Thank you for reminding me who I was." And that was it. She deleted the conversation thread and turned off her phone. A quiet peace settled over her, not because everything was fixed, but because she had finally chosen where she wanted to stay. Later that night, Ethan came home early. He found her sitting near the window, surrounded by paints and half-finished canvases. "You're painting again," he said softly. She smiled faintly. "I forgot how much it helped me breathe." He stepped closer, watching the colors blend on her brush. "You're really good, Claire." "I don't say that enough." His voice was full of sincerity, the kind she hadn't heard in a long time. For a second, everything between them felt simple again. They started taking walks together after dinner. Sometimes they didn't talk much. They didn't need to. The city lights, the sound of cars, and their quiet footsteps said enough. It wasn't about pretending nothing happened. It was about finding small ways to connect again. One night, while walking, Ethan stopped near a small bridge. The river below shimmered in the streetlight. "Remember this spot?" he asked. Claire looked around, confused at first, then smiled faintly. "Our first argument," she said. He chuckled. "Yeah. You stormed off because I said pineapple didn't belong on pizza." She laughed, the real kind of laugh that came from somewhere deep. Ethan's eyes softened at the sound. "I missed that," he said quietly. She looked at him for a long moment. "So did I." They stood there, the cool breeze brushing against them, and it felt like the first step towards something healing. Not perfect, not what it used to be, but real. In the weeks that followed, they learned to rebuild slowly. Some days were good, some days weren't. But every morning they tried, and sometimes that's all love really needs. Two people still willing to try. One Sunday morning, Claire was painting by the window again. Sunlight poured across the room, golden and warm. Ethan walked in with 2 cups of coffee and placed one beside her. "You look peaceful," he said. She looked up, smiling. "For the first time in a while, I think I am." He stood behind her, watching the colors take shape on the canvas, soft blues and warm golds blending into something hopeful. "What's this one called?" he asked. She looked at the painting thoughtfully. "Maybe. Us." He smiled and leaned against the window. "That's a good name." She turned to him. "You know what's strange?" she said softly. "After everything, I still believe in us." Ethan nodded, his eyes glistening. "So do I." He reached out, brushing her hand lightly. A small touch, but one that carried every unspoken word they hadn't been able to say. The past hadn't vanished. The scars hadn't healed overnight. But there was love, quieter, steadier, more mature than before. And for the first time in a long time, Claire felt like they were both seeing each other clearly again. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Claire stepped outside to get some fresh air. The sky was painted in soft shades of orange and pink, the kind of sunset she used to paint back in college. Ethan joined her, wrapping a light blanket around her shoulders. They stood there together, watching the world fall into evening silence. "You know," Ethan said, "I think we forgot something important." She looked up. "What's that?" He smiled faintly. "That love isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up, even when it's messy." Claire leaned her head against his shoulder. "Then maybe we're finally learning." They stayed that way for a long while. No words, just shared quiet. The kind that once felt painful now felt peaceful. Inside the house, her phone buzzed again. A new message. She didn't rush to check it. She didn't even look back, because for the first time, she knew exactly where she wanted to be. The camera of life would have frozen right there. 2 people standing together, bruised but whole, finding beauty in imperfection. But later that night, as Ethan stepped out to take a phone call, Claire glanced at his phone on the counter and saw a name flash across the screen. A woman's name, one she didn't recognize. Her heart stopped for just a moment, wondering, had he started feeling what she once did?